Welcome to our summer worship service at the First Unitarian Society of Ithaca, a community that reaches for connection even while distanced, digs deep for inspiration in uncertain times, and strives to engage with a world characterized at once by the light of the summer solstice, the threat of illness, and the tragedy of pervasive injustice. My name is Sue Anki. Thank you so much for joining us, with a special welcome to the Ithaca community, members of congregations outside of Ithaca, and anyone who is joining us for the first time today. Like me, you are likely wishing we could all be together in the church parlor, with musicians warming up their instruments and the local hum of the electric bands. But instead, we gather together while physically apart, because amid all the uncertainty, we are certain that we need one another. Please be sure to check your email, our Facebook page, and our website for more information about how to create connections amidst this experience of physical distancing. If you'd like to receive weekly updates describing opportunities for engagement, please email a request to office@uuithaca.org. Our service this morning has been pre-recorded, but David Schwartz, our guest speaker, and I will be joining coffee hour after the broadcast on Sunday, so you can share your reflections on his themes. You will also have the opportunity to share joys and sorrows at that time. We look forward to seeing you all. To introduce our guest speaker, David B. Schwartz lives and practices psychotherapy in Fall Creek. For the first half of his working life, he was active in involving people with developmental disabilities in daily life. And now, if you will all breathe in and breathe out with me. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. I have a quote by Jay Marshall. It has been said that time heals all wounds. The truth is that time does not heal anything. It merely passes. It is what we do during the passing of time that helps or hinders the healing process.
For the splendor of the sky. Thank you, Stephanie, for that lovely hymn, which I requested because it was the hymn that was played every week in the Westchester County Unitarian Society where I was raised. Mid-Century Love Letter by Phyllis McGinley. She wrote this in 1950. Stay near me, speak my name. Oh, do not wander by a thought span, heart's impulse from the light we kindle here. You are my sole defender, as I am yours in this precipitous night, which o'er earth till common landmarks alter, is falling without stars and bitter cold. We too have but our burning selves for shelter. Huddle against me, give me your hand to hold. So might two climbers, lost in mountain weather, on a high slope and taken by the storm, desperate in darkness, cling together, under one cloak and breathe each other warm. Stay near me, spirit perishable as bone, in no such winter can survive alone.
Each week I take an offering to sustain the important ministries and programs of this congregation and its presence in Ithaca. May these gifts bring about connection, inspiration, and engagement within these walls and beyond.
One, two, three.
Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. The Talmud. In 1527, a Spanish exploratory ship full of soldiers was wrecked in a storm off the coast, the west coast of Florida. Only 3 of the conquistadors survived, one of whom was named Cabeza de Vaca. And Cabeza de Vaca, when he eventually survived, wrote a report to the King of Spain about his travels and experiences. And what he wrote him was that when they washed up on that beach, I used to live there, I know what those wild beaches are like after a hurricane. They were there, don't know if they would survive, and some local natives of the tribes around there picked them up and brought them to their village and fed them and took care of them and let them rest up until they were finally well. And when they were well, they brought all the sick people there in front of them, and they said, "We've fed you, now we need you. Heal our sick." Well, Cabeza de Vaca said, he said to them, "We're not doctors, we're not priests. We don't know how to heal the sick." To which, in sign language, the natives said, "Heal our sick, or we will kill you." Oh, so he said what he did was, he had a cross and some things, and he pulled it out and made the sign of the cross, and he said what Latin that he knew, and the others did it, and they just did this. And the sick got well. He couldn't believe it. And after this, he decided that they were going to start walking to where the other Spanish were in Mexico. And he walked from about Tampa to Mexico, from village to village. It took them about 8 years. And as he went forward, every village was waiting for them with food and welcome. And they would bring all of their sick together, and they would get up and heal their sick. And they would move on then to the next town where the information had gone out ahead. And they went for 8 years, going from village to village, healing the sick. Eventually, he wrote the king, he arrived back in Mexico. And when he got near civilization, all of his healing power went away. He couldn't do it anymore. He wrote to him. And he wrote to the king, "We have given away all our power to the doctors and the priests." Well, he was a conquistador, He wasn't a fiction writer. He was writing a report. Now, one might think from this perspective, oh, are they really sick? Was it psychosomatic? How can we explain this by our modern understanding of medicine? But, having been in clinical work now for little more than 50 years, mostly with people with very severe injuries, I can tell you that I have seen this. I haven't seen it in a whole group. I've seen it in one person at a time. And I have even seen it in my own office. Now, if you asked me what happened, why are they not ill with this medical illness anymore, I would have to say I understand this about as well as Cabeza de Vaca did. But I now understand that it happens. Now, right now, we are really preoccupied by disease and illness. We have this COVID thing. And all of the thoughts, understandably, go to a vaccine and masks and testing and all of these things that are so important. And here in Ithaca, we observe. But, and I don't discount the need for vaccines in a minute. I hope they find one that's effective. I and other people who are the same age as I am will remember being the first generation to have the Salk polio vaccine. 5 years old, lined up in the public school hallway to be given this shot, which Dr. Thomas Hartmut, a anthroposophic, it means a Steiner-oriented physician in Germany, recently wrote this, and let me say what he had said. A systems-based scientific approach indicates that although pandemics require an understanding of viruses, even more important is a deeper understanding of the immune system. The one-dimensional focus on viruses, infection mechanisms, and worst-case scenarios deflects attention away from the critical effects that psychological and social influences have on the human immune system. In other words, of course, I think as all of us know, you have an infectious agent here, and then you have resistance, what we could call here. And every time someone's exposed to an infectious agent, they don't get the disease. It depends on the amount of resistance. One might see the health. Often we think the health of the person, but it turns out we mean the health of the culture, the health of society, the health of the tribe, because that we understand is where resistance, where strength to fight many of the difficulties of life come from, including disease. Organic farmers around here all know that you don't worry about sprays so much if you worry about the health of the soil. Well, the health of the soil for humans in every way is tremendously important too. Now, human culture, we have human culture here. We even have a joke, ithaculture, but it really means something. With a kind of a psychological sense of community in 5 square miles, surrounded by reality. You know, I was walking down the street where I live in Fall Creek the other day. No, actually, it was when all of the nurses and doctors got back from their month in New York. And the subject came up, and we were talking about it a little bit. And I had said, yeah, they just came back, I think this last week. And the woman said to me, yeah, I don't like that. I said, well, aren't they quarantined? Self-quarantined? She said, oh yeah, yeah, they're all self-quarantined for 14 days. But I still don't like it. So then I asked her the question to which we will all know the obvious answer. I said, do you live in Ithaca? And of course she said to me, no, I just drive here for work a couple of days a week. Now, does that mean that I'm saying that people in Ithaca are warmer, more compassionate people? Although I have people say to me, having traveled the United States, that Ithaca was the friendliest place they'd ever seen. I think it is the culture. It has to do with caring for each other that has existed here for a very long time. And I think that as this woman moved to Ithaca, within a fairly short time, she would probably start saying, oh yeah, that's good. Because that's our culture around here. That's how we face, as my old friend Illich said, illness, suffering, and death. She thought was what a culture was. The difference, you know, between me and we. I got a call recently at my office from a nurse who had been working at her first job at the hospital. And she called me because she was having a nervous breakdown. And she was panic attacks, inability to sleep, debilitating anxiety, hard to eat. And she told me about what she was experiencing on her job as a nurse at the hospital. I started out in this field as a rehab counselor, so jobs and what people could do were familiar to me. And when she described what the conditions of her job were, how long she had to work without any breaks, what the administrative attitudes were, what was happening, I said to her, I think that's a toxic work environment. I think you might do well to find a better job. One of the things that I was concerned about, which I didn't mention, was that all of that, what people like to call stress now, but all of the difficulties and the problems lower your resistance. And it lowers your resistance to disease. And there she was working with COVID people all the time. So one of the things you could say about health is that people have to not be killing themselves. They've got to be supported. They've got to be paid enough. And that's just the caretakers, you know. It's not everybody. The whole question of resistance to disease is a very deep and broad thing, just like it is on an organic farm. Now, I think one thing that people in Ithaca really understand, and it's something that's been lost many places in the country, is that it's always about we, it's not about me. That we need each other. You know, the Dalai Lama, who word tends to count around these parts, once said, without the human community, no single human being can survive. So even though we can't get together in person as we wish, we meet by Zoom because we need each other. And we need vaccines. And we need ventilators. But what we really need more than anything else is we need each other.
We extinguish this chalice, but not the hope, love, and courage that represents. We carry our love and our courage out into this beautiful and broken world. Our service is now ended. Let our true service now begin.